Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, December 13th, 2021. Tonight we are having a series of committee meetings, then followed by a special session of council. The first committee to meet is the Committee of the Whole, and the first item is the opioid litigation settlement. And this was brought to our attention by our law director and mayor just last week, and this is part of the reason we're having this special session tonight that follows the committee meetings because of the urgency of this particular piece of legislation. This is the Johnson & Johnson National Opioid Settlement, and we have been instructed, as have all local governments with populations of more than 10,000, to vote regarding the settlement. And we need to be able to get 95% of the litigating subdivisions to participate in the settlement. So our city of Athens, we're hopefully tonight, once this is passed, will be part of that. And what it does is it agrees to accept the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding, and that was reached on July 21st, 2021. And this is regarding allocation and use of the proceeds of the settlements. Specifically, in the items contained in the information packet for us is that we will potentially receive settlement amount of between $98,827, and if we get 100% participation of all of the municipalities, that number could reach $141,182. So this ordinance will be our city of Athens as a municipality is signing on to this settlement. And Mayor Patterson, did you have any other comments that you wanted to add about this?
The only thing to add, President Nisley, we were successful in another case that came up with the opiate settlement, and one of the things that's going on currently, so council all knows, and those of you who are here tonight know, and everyone who's watching in TV land, is that we're still exploring what that money can be applied to. It has to be to treatment, something that has to do with those who are either in recovery or post-recovery, or even educational, getting information out there. And so there's a lot of conversations going on. Rebecca Robinson Miller over at the College of Health Sciences and Professions at Ohio University has engaged a lot in that venue when it comes to individuals that are being challenged via the opiate pandemic. So I'm also engaging with the county commissioners. I'd like to continue to engage with the township trustees as well. I think more importantly, we have cities and villages, one other city, but a lot of villages where they too, if they are part of this process, will receive an allocation, and it's working with those. As an example, there's one small village here in Athens County that it's going to be receiving about $130, and it's engaging with those mayors and city managers and village managers to think collectively how we can pool that money together and actually have something that has a large impact, as opposed to someone kind of sitting there going, well, how am I going to apply $130 to treatment? And so there's a lot of work, President Nisley, that is going on with other political subdivisions when it comes to these settlements, and we will do the same with this if we're successful, and if council sees fit to pass this through tonight and enter into another round of the opiate settlements that are ongoing in the United States right now.
Right. And I think that Athens County will get anywhere between $500,000 and $1 million. So certainly that regional approach or the county-wide approach might make a lot of sense. So anyway, this ordinance tonight is the council accepting the memorandum of understanding, and that's what the purpose of this ordinance going through tonight is. Any other questions or comments? Okay. If not, we'll move on to the ad hoc committee on the condition of sidewalks, and I believe Councilmember Smedley has some information that she'd like to present.
Thank you, President Nisley. Yes, this has been a collaborative effort to get this together, and I appreciate everyone working with me, particularly Member Fall and Councilmember Debbie Walker, to get the language together, and then feedback from other members of administration. We've talked about sidewalks a number of times as something that we wanted to address, understanding that there's been a significant number of improvements made over the past decade or so with pedestrian accessibility, but we also wanted to recognize that there's still opportunities for improvement within the city limits. And so we thought that one of the best ways of doing that, and I had a great conversation with Mr. Rob DeLocke as well, who had a lot of interest in this as well. So I appreciate his interest and his efforts around this issue. One way that the city oftentimes will look at specific issues is through an ad hoc committee. So with this resolution, it would create an ad hoc committee to use some of the plans that already exist, where a lot of work has already been done around, in particular, the plans such as the bicycle and pedestrian plan, the comprehensive plan, our complete streets policy, referencing all of those things, referencing all the work that's already been done, and looking at what's left to do and trying to come up with a list, essentially, and establishing baseline information, a timeline, and strategies just to help the city along and identifying where those opportunities for improvement. And so this resolution, as I mentioned, would create an ad hoc committee made up of 5 members. The composition would be of a resident, a member of the city's Disabilities on Commission, an Ohio University student, a member of council, and a member of city administration, all to be proposed and introduced by the president of council. So that's the idea. And the ad hoc committee would just exist for a year. Again, the priorities would be to come up with a timeline and a priority list of sorts to recommend to City Council. They would report to City Council quarterly with the idea of meeting their goals by no later than December 1, 2022, or sooner. And I'll take any questions if anyone has any.
We've done this before with other instances, especially when it comes to identifying and prioritizing things such as in the comprehensive plan. This will act actually as a good model for some of the other sections of the comprehensive plan that should probably go under this sort of scrutiny and prioritization. So I think that this is a really good step. Thank you.
Question? I am reflecting on being somewhat new to council, but recognizing that at one point I heard that we tend to use ad hoc groups when we don't already have an existing committee to focus on. So I'm wondering, given that I actually like the idea of empowering more ad hoc groups to give input in areas related to the comprehensive plan, is this at all a divergence from traditional practice of only having ad hoc groups when we don't have, say, a pre-existing committee to look at these issues?
That's an excellent question. Sidewalks do traditionally fall under the Transportation Committee, but this would obviously be not just sidewalks. This is pedestrian accessibility with special importance to the condition of existing sidewalks. But because it is so focused on pedestrian sidewalk, I felt that there was still room for this specialized group that's sort of a breakout of the Transportation Committee.
Thank you.
What's happened in the past with the comprehensive plan, like the 2020 comprehensive plan, is that there was actually a larger ad hoc committee that was established, that was chaired by Ed Baum way back then. They established overall goals and objectives, prioritizations, and baseline sort of criteria so that you can say whether we've done better or not. And out of that project, we also had several smaller committees. So it's something that is very, very used for comprehensive plan processes. So. kind of administration and legislation people all working together, because the planning is administration, but it also has a lot to do with the legislation.
Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. Member McCary and Member Smedley, thank you for working on this. And to your question, Member McCary, the funding is also very different for how we deal with streets versus sidewalks. So it even may make more sense to have an ad hoc committee because of that very different funding structure. Thank you.
And we did receive correspondence this afternoon from the chair of the Disabilities Commission, who's strongly supportive of this, the formation of the committee. So, any other comments or questions? All right. If not, we'll move on to the Transportation Committee, chaired by Councilmember Reisner, and we'll give folks a moment to settle in to their other position down at the table. Those who aren't on the transportation. So it's for transportation, Reisner, Crowell, and Ziff.
Thank you, Madam President. We have an ordinance here that is originating out of the administration. I will read the draft here. An ordinance amending Ordinance 3020, authorizing an agreement with IPS Group, Inc., IPS, to provide parking technology and related services for the Division of Parking Services. The amendment deals with with how the city pays IPS. So the amendment would say the Service Safety Director is hereby authorized to expend, and we're striking out the following: up to $70,000. That's struck out. Now we continue with annually from general fund, and now we're inserting parking enforcement, Fund 101718, transaction code 300 for said services, and adding as outlined in the attached contract. I believe we're doing this mainly for budgetary reasons. I think the auditor and the mayor have at least explained to me about the necessity for doing this, if they would like to chime in on this and add their 2 cents, as it were.
I can certainly mention something, and then Auditor Heck, please feel free to jump in, because I know that you've been watching this and looking at it intimately as well. You know, the interesting thing, and I'm not going to get in too far into the weeds with council or the viewing audience, but basically the contract is with parking and is enforcement. The other expenses that we have with the IPS meters themselves are basically the services provided for backhaul on the meters, and you know, everyone knows that the meters now accept credit and debit cards and also prepaid cards and whatnot. So one of the things that Chief Pyle has done is he's gone back and basically collated the expenses under enforcement, and to this point in time, and I need to qualify that, but as of the end of November, our expenses with the enforcement side are $64,836.95. And so I believe that Service Safety Director Andy Stone reached out to you and kind of walked you through a lot of this process with this particular contract. So again, the contract is on the enforcement side. It's not on the metered services, because we purchased these meter heads. So we are paying the the service fees and everything associated with those meter heads. As was indicated, you know, the Service Safety Director has really been looking over this a lot and working it through in conjunction with the Chief of Police and Captain Ralph Harvey, who's over parking enforcement, and looking at the way in which this should all work its way out as we move forward. And one of the things that the Service Safety Director has just requested is that, you know, instead of authorizing or having a $70,000 cap on the service that can fluctuate from year to year. Is instead just authorizing the service safety director via the contract to pay the fees in accordance with the terms of the attached contract. Auditor Heck, I don't know if you want to add anything to that?
Just a reminder, there's been a lot of talk about this for the last couple of weeks, and, you know, I put my opinions out there and provided all the information that people needed. It looks like this year we're going to spend more than $70,000 on those services, which isn't a bad thing. That means our parking meters are being used, the IPS is enforcing our collection of tickets, etc. But what council needs to remember is on the other side of this, there is a revenue entry for all of these expenses. But, you know, our reports are separated, so, you know, it's probably this year our expense will be slightly over $70,000 and just under 25% of what we bring in. So I think, unless you have any other questions.
Any questions from the members of council, committee? Other members of council? Oh, auditor?
Just to remind everybody, this was a 5-year contract that we entered into about a year and a half ago. So we have at least 3.5 more years on this contract, and we need to be able to pay our bills. So that's why we're trying to get this done right now and not be in violation of our own ordinance.
If we somehow did violate our own ordinance, would that make a finding with the state auditor?
If they find it.
If? Yeah. Well, you certainly reassured me, thank you. Member Crowe.
Yeah, I'll just say that as we went back and forth and tried to figure out these exact expenses and the revenues from this, $70,000 was almost dead on. I mean, we're only a few $100s over, I think. So even if it was picked up at the state, I don't think they'd be jumping up and down saying, you know, you're a few $100s. But we'll fix it anyway so that it is correct. But actually, the estimates, whether it was from the auditor's office or from the police department or the SSD, were pretty close.
I think the other thing about this ordinance is there's no percentage and no limit, and basically we're referencing the fees that are in the contract that we've agreed to pay for the different services. There's at least half a dozen of them. And so the council doesn't need to look at this every 6 months to see if we've gone over our 30%, 25%, our 70,000. We're basically just agreeing to pay what we signed a contract to say we would for the next 3.5 years.
Member Ziff?
Nope.
Okay. Nope.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Sounds like it.
Not a big fan of lying to the state auditor, so,
No, all right.
especially now that it's all on public record. Oh, jeez. Oh, no.
There's no lying.
Okay,
That's it.
finished? All right,
Finished.
we'll move on to Finance and Personnel Committee, and so Councilmember Crowell is chair, and Reisner, and then they'll be joined by Councilmember Smedley.
Thank you, President Isley. One item tonight for Finance and Personnel. Last week, we were alerted to a billing change in some of the financial software that the city uses, and really to accommodate this billing change, we will need to make a second annual payment this year. This would be 3 different payments in the amount of $4,900 each. One to water, the water fund, one to the sewer fund, and one to the garbage fund. And we will be suspending the rules to pass this tonight.
Okay.
Any questions from Finance and Personnel on this item?
No,
Rest of council? Okay, thank you. That ends Finance and Personnel.
Okay, we'll move on to Planning and Development, so Councilmember Fall chairing that, joined by Reisner, Smedley, and Grace.
Okay, we only have one item on our agenda this evening, and it is a resolution establishing a zero waste policy for the city of Athens. This is a resolution the mayor and I have been working on for a while, and also Lisa. As you know, the state does do this thing called preemption, and they've done it quite a lot. And I'm probably, on council, probably the queen of preemption, talking about how to get around stupid ways that the Columbus legislature, the legislature up in Columbus, in their wily ways, puts in the way of being able to establish our own home rule when it comes to things like waste, or other things such as fracking, disposal of hazardous waste. So part of it is being able to go and do the things we need to do as a city and our processes as a city so that we can be the leaders that we have been in this whole area with one of the first curbside recycling, the composting, and a lot of the other things that Athens really has put forward as a leader. So basically, this resolution, which I'll read during council, instructs because the city council requests the mayor to take steps necessary to become plastic-free by January 23, to include all events held on city property and sponsored by the city to be plastic-free by 23. Purchase products and services that cause minimal adverse environmental impact and conduct a waste audit of city buildings by September of 23. And to develop a zero waste policy with benchmarks that they would present to council. The city has already done an audit, a zero waste audit, and a pledge. They did an audit in 2016. That's great. That's baseline information to go forward with this sort of thing, and also looking at green procurement policies and stuff. So it is trying to be a policy that is adaptive and making sure that we pay attention to the global climate change and the climate emergency resolution that was passed, and some of the other health emergencies that we've passed in the few years. So that's basically it. I want to say thank you to the mayor and to the law director. So thank you.
Sounds like a good idea.
So I think there
Do we have audience members
yeah.
that wants to
Any
have
other
the
council members? Or I know that we have some audience members if they'd like to talk about this. Sure. Yeah, thank you. That way they don't have to wait until.
Awesome.
Jenna Lee, if you want to speak more than that, you should give us your name and address, so we have it
Okay.
for the record, and also for those viewing in the audience, and you can have up to 3 minutes if you want.
Okay.
I'll time it. There's a little light.
So I'm Jana Lee Stock. I've lived in Athens County for about 50 years. I am part of Athens Rethink Plastics, a group that came together soon after we were kind of schooled at a lunch and learn by Chris about preemption and home rule and House Bill 242. We have been meeting very regularly for the last several years, and I won't go into everything we've done, but we put in countless hours. We are thoroughly committed to help the city in any way we can to accomplish this goal. I want to tell you real quickly, I'm driving down 682, an ambulance comes by, everyone gets off the road, they stop. They know it's an emergency. And I'm thinking, you know, this is awesome, because we respect that there are situations that call for all of us paying attention and doing the next right thing. And I'm looking around thinking there are people from all different walks of life. We're all following the same direction, the same rule. We have no idea what the emergency is. And maybe someone, you know, miles and miles away, as has happened with the climate catastrophe. But the things that we're seeing in the news in Miami, in Kentucky, these are things that are going to come to our doorstep eventually. And it does no good to not take action proactively. So I am just so thankful that City Council is doing something with real teeth. Thank you.
I'd like to pass these out to all of you. Yes, there's that one and this one. So my name is Melina Miller. I live at 25 Graham Drive. I'm a city resident now for a long time. I'm a member of this committee, Athens Rethink Plastics. These are some literature about our committee and about the Petrochemical Hub, which may or may not be on hold right now in Belmont County, but the first cracker plant has already been built in Pennsylvania. So I'm just sharing that information in case you haven't seen it. This is one of the things our committee, Athens Rethink Plastics, has been doing. And as you can see, these are old feed and seed bags, which we clean and sew into shopping bags. We've been handing them out at the food bank, at the Pawpaw Festival, all kinds of events. And I have been working with Rural Action, and Ed Newman is my partner there, to continue work that I did at Visiting Nurses in Hospice for over 21 years, and that's recycling medical supplies and equipment. And since April, we have had 8 events in various counties, 2 right here at the Athens Community Center, and tomorrow Ed's taking the 3rd of 40-foot containers that we have collected to Cleveland to ship back overseas to countries and people who are in need. Most of these supplies and equipment, up until this stage and over these years, would be going into the landfill. And make no mistake about it, this stuff is not junk. Much of it is brand new in the containers in which it came in. And so you don't want to get me started about, manufacturers and corporations and all that. But we are being led down this very unrosy path about this stuff across the country. And so our little actions here are just so important. And MedWish International is the only nonprofit humanitarian organization in the state of Ohio who's been working on this for 27 years, begun by a medical student who's a doctor now. And so this proposal is just right in line with everything I believe in and everyone I'm working with. And so we thank you very, very much. I'm Melanie Morning-Smith. I live at 5800 University Heights, Athens, and I'm a retired nurse practitioner. We know that 30% of plastics are being used that aren't being recycled. Things like plastic bottles, straws, some other things that are just the flexible plastic, and 91% of plastics in the world are not being recycled. And the plastics that are in, like water bottles and straws, they are extremely toxic to human life. And one of the things I found out is it does cause cancer. I'm a retired nurse practitioner. And along the Ohio River Valley, we see cancer centers all coming up. And one of the things that does cause cancer is the plastics. The flexible plastics are endocrine disruptors, and they cause breast cancer, they cause prostate cancers, and they cause reproductive cancers. And other substances, there's 14 toxic chemicals in plastics, and they cause different types of cancers as well, brain cancers and leukemias. So we need to be aware that we're killing ourselves with the use of plastics. Plastics are going to be here for medical supplies. We're going to need them. But the single-use plastics don't need to be used. We use a bag for 12 minutes, and then it takes about over 500 years to decompose. It doesn't decompose. It's a forever plastic. So I guess I'm saying, for the sake of our health, for our city and the county, and for the world, too, we need to put our brakes on plastics, especially the single-use ones. Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening, members of council. My name is Amy Delac. I live on Morris Avenue. I am the chair of the Environment and Sustainability Commission here in Athens, on which I serve with Council Member Crowell and also Ed Newman, who is invoked tonight. It just so happens at our December 1st meeting, we had a discussion about plastics and about the unfortunate proliferation of plastics as sort of a side effect of all of the takeout that we've had, increase in that during the pandemic. We lamented the home rule limitations that we have in limiting things like plastic bags due to our illustrious State House counterparts. And it was actually just a few days later that I learned about Councilwoman Fowles' proposed resolution. So we didn't get a chance to vote on a particular recommendation because we hadn't heard about it on our December 1st meeting. But I know that it's an issue that the Sustainability Commission is very, very interested in helping the city of Athens reduce plastics. And so I'd like to convey my personal support and to say that probably in spirit, the whole commission is behind you, even if I can't say it with a vote. Thank you.
Thanks. Great. Nancy wanted to. Nancy, thanks for joining us. If you can give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Nancy Pierce. I am at 3016 South Rody Haver Road, Guysville, Ohio.
Okay.
I don't have anything prepared. I think that my part with the Athens Rethink Plastics group has been partly to give out information about the oil and gas industry and how they are wanting to continue and expand fracking around our area by producing more plastics. And they had a big plan for the Ohio River Valley producing ethane for more and more and more plastics. I'm not sure that plan is quite still in place. It may have been modified some, partly because so many plants went in down in Cancer Alley to produce more plastics. But what they want to do is keep on, natural gas was not selling high, so we can still use it though to produce more plastics. And it's just so easy to use plastics. It's so easy, and they know that. And of course many of us, having a harder and harder time economically, so it's harder not to use more plastics. And I think it's a kind of habit and a lifestyle that if we can be mindful about it and if we can set an example, we're really going to help the environment that we live in, that we don't just live in it, we are part of the environment. And it's really, really important. And I really, really am thankful to you. I appreciate you, Chris, putting out this resolution. And we're going to be present and hope to see it really be lived out at the city level.
Madam President, may I just add one more quick thing that I'd like to bring to your attention? In July, we had an Athens Rethink Plastics Free July supported by the Ohio Sierra Club. And there were so many businesses here. I wish they could all be present tonight. And we've been in communication with them, but they just really made an effort. They donated money to our campaign. We gave out these bags at the different places, everything from White's Mill to C&E Hardware to all over the place, all over Athens County, and most of the city businesses. They were so supportive, and they all went out of their way to address what they could personally do in their businesses to change and reduce their use of plastics. And that's just phenomenal, and I want you to realize I could give you a whole list of that and what they've done, but it's remarkable. So
Thank you. Thank you.
I need to give you my address.
That would help if you have the You're in Dutch Creek, is that it?
13834 Dutch Creek Road. I call it
Thank
Dutch
you.
Creek Road.
That's okay. It's hard to remember everything. Okay.
Great.
All right.
Any other comments or concerns? Great, thank you very much. That's the end of this agenda.
Okay. That's the end of our committee meetings for tonight, and we'll head on into our special session. We have a number of,
Sorry.
No, you're good.
and with this special session, you'll notice tonight there are some ordinances for third reading, then there are some additional ordinances for second reading and first reading. We will be moving ahead to suspend all items tonight so that this will be our last session, we think, of council for the year for 2021. Ordinance, our first item of business is establishing a quorum, and we do have all members present. And we'll now move into ordinances for third reading. 11321 is an ordinance amending certain sections of Athens City Code Title 7, Traffic Code, Chapter 7.04, Chapter 7.05, Parking Regulations, and this is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion to adopt 113-21.
Second?
This has been read in committee. It's been introduced, it's been amended, it's been brought back up again. I think we're ready to pass this. So I hope everyone else will vote in favor.
We have a motion and second for approval of 11321. Are there any other comments or questions from council members, elected officials, or our audience? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 13321 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 23, Zoning Code, Chapter 23.08, Off-Street Parking and Loading, Unloading Regulations, and Chapter 23.10, Definitions, Table B, Off-Street Parking Requirements, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. I move that we adopt 13321.
Second.
Thank you. This has been in front of council and in front of the Planning Commission for easily more than 100+ days of comment and investigation. The last time off-street parking had been addressed in the city was 2004. A lot of things have changed since then. This will also help to direct some of the development towards types of development that have been identified in the city as needed, such as affordable housing or housing that has LEED certification or universal housing sort of thing, so that it gives the city flexibility to be able to do these other types of housing. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of Ordinance 13321. Are there any comments or questions from council members, elected officials, or the audience? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved.
Thank you.
13821 is an ordinance suspending Athens City Code Section 7.05.03, continuous parking in the same location from Sunday, December 19th, 2021 through midnight on January 1st, 2022, and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion to adopt 138-21.
Second?
This ordinance comes up every year. We do this, and I really have nothing more to add to it. So
Okay. It lets us park a little more freely on
that's
the holidays.
hopefully.
All right, we have a motion and second. Do we have any comments or questions from council members or elected officials or the audience? Yes, Mayor
Just a
Patterson.
comment that going into 2022, we'll make sure that we roll this into the slate that council authorizes when it comes to street closings and suspension of ordinances for different events, and we'll make sure that the Halloween,
That's part of
or
it.
I'm sorry, the holiday season parking is pulled into that mix as well.
Okay. Okay, yeah, consolidating some of this, yeah. Thank you. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 13921 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an administrative services contract with the Hocking Athens Perry Community Action Programs, known as HAPCAP, for Community Development Block Grant, CDBG funds, program year 2022, and declaring an emergency. And this is introduced by Councilmember Grace.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 13921.
Second.
Thank you. And we've discussed this ordinance in committee and previous council meetings. This allows the city to enter into a cooperative agreement with HAPCAP to manage some CDBG, Community Development Block Grant funds, and is a really a great partnership for the city and for distribution of these funds.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and second for approval. Any comments or questions from council members, elected officials, or the audience? If none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 14021 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract extension to provide financial support for the operations of Athens County Economic Development Council and declaring an emergency. And this is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to adopt 014021.
Second.
Thank you. This is our partnership with the Athens County Economic Development Council. This is a 3-year financial support contract with them, $60,000 annually. And this is just part of our agreements to work with these organizations within our area who are very strong partners. And they do lots of regular reporting to council and do surveys, et cetera, about how this partnership is moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. We have a motion and second for approval of the ordinance. Any comments or questions from council members, elected officials, or our audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 14121 is an ordinance authorizing 2022 staffing levels and non-union compensation, repealing all ordinances inconsistent therewith and declaring an emergency, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, President Nyes. I'd like to make a motion to approve 014121.
Second.
Thank you. This is our annual staffing and non-union compensation ordinance, and there's a lot of information there, but that's all I need to say. Thank you.
And has been reviewed a lot in
Has been
committee.
reviewed and talked in committee,
discussed
and
and-
first
yeah.
reading,
Thank you.
a lot of work.
Right. Okay, we have a motion and second. Any comments or questions from council members or elected officials or our audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 14221 is an ordinance adopting a fringe benefits package for non-union personnel within the city of Athens and repealing all ordinances inconsistent therewith and declaring an emergency, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, President Nyes. I'd like to make a motion to approve 014221.
Second.
Thank you. This is the, as in the title, the fringe benefits package that goes along with the staffing and non-union compensation. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval. Any comments or questions from council members, elected officials, or our audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Move on to 14321. This is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into a contract with the Employee Benefit Service Center to serve as the city's third-party health insurance administrator, TPA, and declaring an emergency. And this is introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Nyes. I'd like to make a motion to approve 014321.
Second.
Thank you, Member Fall. This is, as the title explains, is as a self-insured city, this is the third party which basically administers that plan. Thank you, President Leslie.
We have a motion and second for approval of 14321. Any questions or comments from council members, elected officials, or our audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 14421 is an ordinance authorizing a stop-loss group excess loss medical insurance contract and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to approve 014421.
Second?
Thank you. As described, this authorizes our Service Safety Director to enter into a one-year contract for medical insurance that covers, this is again, the stop loss or the excess loss for our self-insured. Basically, it serves as a reimbursement mechanism for claims that go over predetermined levels. Thank you, President Isley.
We have a motion and second for approval of 14421. Are there any questions or comments from council members, elected officials, or our audience? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 14521 is an ordinance amending the Athens City Zoning Code, Title 23, to include short-term rentals as recommended by the Athens City Planning Commission, and is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. I move that we adopt 14521.
Second.
Thank you. We've had months and months of discussion about this. It's been through, excuse me, it's been through the City Council and then through the Planning Commission, which is a administrative process where the administrative branch gets to weigh in on the ordinance. And then it's been through committee meetings, a public hearing, and council meetings. So basically, it's to update our Title 23 to basically the reality that is today that for short-term rentals. It puts into code regulations to limit the amount of short-term rental that would be in the R1 area, and also opening up some of the other areas to a more regulated type of short-term rental. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval. Do we have comments or questions from council members? Councilmember Smedley.
Thank you, President Isley. Thank you, Member Fall, for bringing this forward, and I appreciate the community engagement through this process. I do feel confident that this will create a mechanism that will control what we have already existing within the city, allow us to collect some transient guest tax, and also recognizing that if some of the concerns that have been raised up until this point come to fruition, this body exists to make those changes, to rectify or correct those concerns. So once again, I appreciate the public engagement and participating in the democratic process, but I do feel confident that what we have before us will be a benefit to the city.
Okay. Other comments from council members? Councilmember McCary.
Sure, I have two questions. First, I was just hoping to check in and confirm the time sensitivity of passing this in with implications for collection of transient guest tax revenue in the upcoming year. So if this were not to be passed tonight, are there any implications for ability to collect that tax? That might be a question for the auditor. Yeah.
Well, it's always nice to start something like this on January 1, but really there's no reason why it couldn't start whenever transient guest taxes are paid to the city quarterly. So whenever it was the law for someone, somebody opens a new motel, they start paying it when that opens. So, no, there's no real, repercussions for my office. When somebody decides to rent out a room or whatever, they start paying the tax.
Thank you very much. The second question addresses a point of contention that has come up, different perspectives regarding the necessity of having the owner of a short-term rental be present in R1 neighborhoods. And I'm wanting to ask if there are any legislative benefits or protections that we're aware of regarding whether owners are present or not. So is there any legal protection, benefit, or consequence that we as a council or with our law director are aware of, implications for whether or not the owner needs to be present, which is not currently in this legislation, but I'm wondering if there are any implications.
I think this, we've been talking a lot about this. This was brought by members of the public through this democratic process. The idea that one has to be present is a very vague term. There have been other terms that were used in other discussions. The original resolution that went to the Planning Commission had owner occupied. But then the Planning Commission, looking at the code, looking at how long-term rentals are used and other code language, were satisfied with the language they have now. The language also is seen in some of the tax coding that we have in the city. So that helps to make it so that all legislation is at the same level for that particular issue. Also, I think we have to understand that certain processes are administrative. If administration wants to do certain things to ensure stricter, they can always ask that. They can ask for a tax, a tax bill or those sort of things. They've done that in other things. So administrative has the executive job of administrating the regulations, making the rules and those sort of things.
I think my question might be more of a liability one. Is there any legal concern over not having a Airbnb manager, property owner present? I understand it's a vague term, but is there any legal consequence to not having that in place?
And I could be understanding wrong, but right now we have keeping by a resident owner.
Mm-hmm.
And resident owner, if we look at resident, a resident is someone who occupies a building. So I think that may answer your question, but I think we have the language there.
Okay.
And that language is seen in other parts of the code that we already have, such as in tax chapter 17. Right. So one thing that these ordinances do go through is multiple readings with both the law director, the auditor, and the code director and the planning person. So it's been vetted.
Other comments or questions from council members? Okay. If none, and any comments or questions from elected officials? Okay. And any comments or questions from our audience? And if you'd like to come up, your name and address, and 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Sam Curtin. I live at 20 Elmwood Place in Athens. I've been in Athens since 1986. I came in tonight to speak to the point of Airbnbs. I wanted to start by thanking you guys for your hard work that you do keeping the city functioning. It means a lot that you're doing this work. Second, I would like to begin by saying I personally believe that there should be a part of town where we conduct business, and there should be a part of town where I can raise a child and walk peacefully through the neighborhood and sleep all night without somebody playing guitar on the front porch next to me at 4 in the morning. So it would be my wish that you keep business in the business areas of town and you keep residential neighborhoods and families together in the family part of town. I think it might be a wise idea to ease into this, where instead of just open the floodgates for all zones in Athens, would it make sense to say, why don't we try it out first in the business areas? If that's successful, we could move into the residential areas. Another concern that I have is very near my property on the corner of Elmwood and East State, there's several student rentals that are not currently abiding by code in that they have 5 people in the house instead of 3 people in the house, and it's been that way ever since I've lived on Elmwood. And if we can't enforce the current code, I think it would be challenging to bring a new layer of activity for enforcement to come in if we can't currently enforce the code that we have. So the third point I would like to make, or the next point I would like to make is, I had Mr. Crow distribute a document here, and if I have a son that's about to enter college, and I work at Ohio University, and because of that, I have my finger on the pulse of how people plan to finance their kid going through college. And one of the strategies, if you follow financial bloggers, is to buy an Airbnb, put your son as a co-owner of the property, so he's the resident. I put the down payment down. You fill the house up every night for the next 4 years, and then your sibling is going to move in and follow you for another 4 years. Now I have 8 years of somebody playing a guitar on my front porch in the house right next to me, while a guy from Cleveland who has enough money for a down payment on the house next to me gives his kid an education on going through school financially with debt-free. So this is just one example. If you search the internet, you can find tons of bloggers talking about buying Airbnbs for your kid in a college town so you can come out on the other side without debt. So that's my conclusion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Again, I'm Melinda Miller at 25 Graham Drive. I really empathize with this gentleman because we've had a recent situation the past year and a half on the Far East Side, two doors away from my home, and it's been the same situation. I mean, we finally figured out, I'm a member of FINA, although I don't speak for FINA tonight, but we finally figured out that the property owners no longer lived there, turned the property over either formally or legally or not to his nephew, and there are more than 3 young men living there. We've called code numerous times. It's very hard to keep track of these kids, and the property has been I think, put into this young man's name, and so this is our concern. I mean, they're parking in the middle of the lawn. They have parties all night long. The neighbors have asked them formally at 2:30 in the morning to stop, to keep it down. And they've been treated very badly in return for that. So it's a concern. It's just a concern.
Thank you.
Mary Abel, 48 Strathmore. Last meeting, there was a very fleeting comment or a reference to a 1-800 number regarding STRs. And I'm wondering if that's something you or the mayor could address, what that is about.
Mayor Patterson, was this, I think, regarding enforcement, and I think it was a suggestion, there was a possibility for code enforcement office to implement a 1-800 number, as I remember the discussion.
With the consultant that David Riggs was talking about when we were talking with him.
Sure. Well, if you're referring to the service that is available, this is available US-wide, really globally, and it's a service in which they track Airbnb, well, short-term rentals, whether it's Vrbo or Airbnb or whatever, and tracking those that are operating in the city and whether they're paying the transient guest tax. But when it comes to, I don't know whether that's the same organization or operation that does the addressing of issues.
What David was talking, David Riggs, the code enforcement person, it sounded like it was the same package. And because the savings in being having not to go out and personally require taxes to come in, that it was going to be relatively neutral free when it comes to money. But he was talking about the 1-800 number, not only for neighbors, but also for renters to be able to contact. I think that this is something that has come up before because I think most people want, when we're talking about present or those sort of issues, is that they want somebody to be able to call a number. And we've done some of that addressing sort of thing with long-term rentals by having people put their contact numbers on signs in the front of some of the rentals in certain parts of the city. And then that way you know that you can access somebody if there's an issue. So the city, this, once again, an administrative process that the administration will go forward with after, you know, if the ordinance passes. Thank you.
So this is just a contact number that a person can call, but it does not negate having contact with code enforcement to take care of a problem? Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Ms. Abel, yeah, to that I'm not sure how this application works, whether it's directly contacting code enforcement and alerting them that a complaint has been lodged, or whether it goes directly to code for lodging that complaint. That I do not know.
And I assume there's a cost associated with this.
There is. There is, and off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was somewhere around $4,000 a year to contract with an organization like that. One of the other things that I do know that this company does is it also tracks for anybody who has stayed, you know, at a short-term rental, you know, during that short-term rental experience. At the end, you know, you rate the place that you're staying, the owner of that place rates you too, and it's I do know it's a way in which to track people, either a tenant, short-term tenant, or the owner, to where if there's concerns over the way things are being conducted, that you're rating them. And I believe this application also tracks the ratings of individual units as well, which I think would be helpful in any short-term rental environment, to be able to identify whether there's a bad, I don't want to say bad, you know, there's a non-compliant unit that's being rented out, or or conversely, if an individual is abusing a space that they're residing in. But again, that's as much as I know of that software package.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, good evening. Alan Swank, 40 Townsend Place. I was watching the Cincinnati Bengals last night, down 14 points in the fourth quarter, and they came back. I fully expected them to win that game. And before I received the information that I received this week about this document, about this ordinance, I thought we might be in a different place, but we're not, and that's disturbing. And we talk about process, and that's embarrassing. I received this email early Thursday morning from Debbie Walker, to Chris Fall, Chris Nisley, Lisa Eliason. Good afternoon, Chris. Since the public has expressed concern about whether the owner must be present during a short-term rental period, Lisa has recommended the following amended language, highlighted in green. If she cares to make it on Monday, I don't think you will have any problem getting the 6 votes to amend the Planning Commission's recommendation. We all stood here and sat here last Monday night, and this was withheld from all 7 of you. How do I know that? When I contacted the majority of council members on Thursday, nobody knew about it. In fact, one reply I got, "That's news to me. Perhaps I missed something. How did you hear?" Well, the way I heard is, I got this email. And what was our law director's recommendation? The law director, I think we all respect and couldn't really operate without. Her recommendation was the following: short-term rentals, the keeping of not more than 2 renters by a resident owner who is present during the time of rental. Yeah, we were told last Monday night, and I quote, we talked about that today with the law director, and she feels that there really is no problem with the wording. What wording? The wording that's currently in the document? Or her recommendation that was withheld from the 7 of you last Monday night and the public? We talk about defining the word resident. Webster defines it as living in a place for some length of time, present. I think before we pass this, we better define those terms, because they're not. You have some options tonight. You can table it. That's not going to happen because you want this passed before the end of the school year and the end of your term. But you can amend it to include what our law director has recommended. I would hope you consider that, because there are a lot of people who have come here tonight, as these folks did, to share those cautions and concerns. Thank you very much.
Before I step in front of that podium and you start that clock, I want to say something. Nobody loves this town more than me. Please don't misinterpret the tone of my voice. It's passion for Athens, not anger at anyone. I will always tell it like it is. All right, start the clock. My name is Jack Stauffer. I live at 69 Elmwood. I'm here to address R1 short-term rentals. This is not a tourist town. People come here to drink, party, and some of them raise hell. When I spoke last Monday evening, I said everything I said was true, and all the words I'm about to say right now are true. First, my stance and views, again, for consideration. No short-term rentals in R1, or only on the main thoroughfares as they pass through R1, or permitted only as Lisa's recommendation that Chris failed to disclose to the public last Monday. As Mr. Swank just said, who is present during time of the renting? And as you recall, I read Webster's definition of present. Now, if you move to amend, then we need to amend, and we need to define what present is. It needs to be fair, it needs to be firm, it needs to be enforceable. Since that meeting, much more has come to light, and now, above and beyond my great concern for our R1 property rights, other things have come to light. I will ask every one of you, please, make a motion to table. Somebody second it, and table this thing so we can get it in front of a new council with fresh eyes that maybe could protect our current quality of life. Let me expand on those thoughts. I ran down the timeline with my research. I find it very troubling about Chris's deception and omission of our city attorney's recommendation. This should have been shared with the public, and most importantly, it should have been shared with her fellow members. That omission was fuel for thought for the other members. And without it, it appears it was her full intention to withhold this and let council vote without Lisa's recommendation. I'm not going to use the word crooked on her, but I'm damn sure not going to say straightforward. Now the entire process has been tainted, soiled, and Chris Fall has dirt on her hands. Seems most honest, logical people of the public and the press would have a great tendency, if this is not tabled and voted on and approved, that would shine a very poor light on our entire council and administration, that one dishonest action could damage all our reputations. She was deceitful, period. I'm not talking about legal and illegal. I'm talking about right and wrong. We've gone from Chris telling us in October 2016 all R1 property rights will be respected and protected to her hiding important information from her own fellow council members. The mayor told me standing in the lobby of City Hall a couple years ago that he was in favor of short-term rentals, but he didn't want it to be like the Wild West. Well, Even hotels in the Wild West had a front desk and somebody was there. It's clear to me this hasn't been a completely honest process. R.E. Chris False omission and deception to you members and the general public of the citizens of Athens, Ohio. I ask, beg really, show integrity and character. Table this or amend it to protect our quality of life. I'm a big believer in fair and honest. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Locke.
And now for something completely different. I'm Amy Delac. I live on Morris Avenue in the Near East Side. I'm speaking tonight only for myself. The Sustainability Commission has nothing to do with it. I've stayed in Airbnbs in 6 different countries. I stay in Airbnbs preferentially when I travel. And I actually want to thank Council for bringing this up, for all of the extensive thought and planning and listening to the public that went into this. And I do support the resolution that's on the table right now. I hope the Council will pass it. And I just want to state for the record some of the things that maybe haven't been said out loud. But all of the other laws of the City of Athens, the whole rest of the code still stands. The parking ordinances still stand. The limitations on, being able, how long you can park still stand. The noise ordinances still stand. Complaints, and the police department is still there. And I personally, we do have a back room that my son vacated when he moved out, and we might be interested in using that as a resident, owned Airbnb where we occasionally have guests. But the other thing that still stands is the law of supply and demand. And as much as we might like to think, we're not Reykjavik. We're not Lisbon. We are very unlikely to have our entire city overrun by short-term rentals because we just don't have that many visitors on a consistent year-round basis. So I really do think that some of the worst case scenarios about Airbnbs are unlikely to come true. I very much doubt that someone could fund their students' education by renting out an Airbnb because I don't think that they would have that kind of occupancy. And just the last thing I want to say, a romantic evening at Chez de Lac involves pouring a glass of wine and watching some Strong Towns videos on YouTube. And one of the things that I heard recently on a Strong Towns video that really stuck with me is that a principle of a strong town is that no neighborhood should undergo radical change, but no neighborhood should be completely immune from change, and that includes the R1 zone. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks. Other comments? Yes.
So I'm Rob Delac, Morris Avenue in the city of Athens, and I don't know how I follow that exactly. But I will say that I think the opposition has been grasping at a straw here, and they've been focusing on a very minor detail, what we're talking about here, that is not consequential to the implementation by the administration for enforcement and compliance with the regulations that are being proposed here. This has been well thought out, well vetted. The administration is in agreement that this is a good policy and they would like to see it passed as well. Hence, they've been supporting it and working to figure out how they can enforce and implement this all along. This has not been done in a back room. It's been out in public for years. We've been talking about this. Time is right to do this. Delaying it will probably mean it will not happen. Next year, with the new council, it won't be taken back up. It's controversial. And we're not going to see the effort to reinstate this and move it forward again in the next council is my prediction. That would be a waste of all the effort that's going into this. We need to regulate Airbnb short-term rentals in this city. This is the right way to do it. As I think Member Smedley had pointed out, we can make changes to this if needed. If there's problems that arise, we can make changes. But it's not the time to do that right now. We need to move ahead and pass this, please. Thank you.
Joan Kranaski, 56 Mound Street. I wasn't going to come tonight because I thought I said everything I wanted to say, and how many more things can you say? And then I picked up the new comprehensive plan and looked under housing and neighborhoods. And this is what I found. You may not see, tons of people here in opposition, but listen to what people said when they did all of those meetings out in the neighborhoods and did all those surveys. This is what people said about housing regulations. While current housing zoning regulations have created the housing scheme, meaning that we have today, survey results confirm that respondents are unsure or leery of supporting zoning changes that may allow for more housing options within the city. And this is all a direct quote. The scenario of recognizing and supporting a change, but concerned with the potential of negative or, and I'm emphasizing, unintended consequences that may be associated with change is a very common phenomenon. Those concerns can be minimized by thoughtful and well-communicated incremental approaches. And I want to focus on incremental. I think the first gentleman that came up brought that up. And I thought, well, that's really important because gradually to go into a change works so much better than pushing full force. I really would prefer that you would not go forward with this tonight. And what I want to say, I'm looking at all of you, and you're all educated. You've all written papers. How many times have you rewritten, and you think, if I have to write this darn thing one more time, I'm going to, have another beer, and then another cup of coffee, and then you keep going. Because rewriting is not the end of the world. With rewriting, you only get better and better, and you really want to do an incremental situation here. You don't want to force feed this on people. I know we have people out there that are breaking the law. Nobody's doing anything about them. So I'm really asking you to table this. Rewriting it would not be a bad thing. We'll only make it better. And
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bump it twice. I was just trying to turn it off.
And I'm going to go off the topic.
One more minute, Joni.
Okay. I spent a lot of time in Cambodia doing research on my master's thesis, working with women in local politics. I spent a lot of time with NGOs who were working on developing new democracies. And the big word was transparency. And I'm actually ashamed this whole situation with the wording had to come up because it just hit me in the face of here we are in this great democracy, and yet even members of our city council can't be transparent. And what does that say about us? It almost brought me to tears. So with that, I will step aside and ask you to table this and to bring it forward with incremental changes into the R1 neighborhoods, because that's exactly what Paul Logue wrote in the brand new comprehensive plan. Thank you. And thank you all for putting up with all of us and all of our conversation, and have a good holiday.
President Isley, I don't have a comment, but could I ask a legal question, please?
Yes, come up to the podium, please.
Alan Swank.
This has to do with something that somebody brought up, and that is the council next time or the following term could change the rules. So this kind of has to do, and I have to address this to Law Director Elias, and this has to do with grandfathering. Let's say that this does pass tonight as is, and a person files the permit and legally gets their Airbnb permit and all of that, and a subsequent council decides for whatever reason this hasn't worked. Okay? It may work, but they find that it hasn't worked. If that person has secured that permit and has been following the law and allowing people to rent, even though council changes the rules back to the way they are today, would that permit holder be grandfathered in? In other words, would they be able to continue?
I don't believe that they would be able to continue. It would be, you get your permit year to year.
Okay.
And in this situation, if we no longer offer short-term rentals, then you wouldn't be able to get a permit to
Okay,
operate.
but they would be able to continue for the duration of the permit period?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
I want to check to see if there's anybody else who wants to make a comment first, Mr. Stauffer, before we return to you. No? Okay, come on up. Sure.
Thank you. Look, it's a taking of property rights. It's a quality of life issue. There's deception involved. It's not proper. And to Mr. Swank's point, it opens a legal can of worms. Ms. Eliason, who I respect, says, well, I don't believe it would be. That opens you up for litigation. Please, stand up. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. Show some integrity. Show some character. Show some honesty. And show some compassion to the general public in only the R1 in our city. I love it. I love living here. I've been here 68 years. I've been inside the city limits 51 of them. You're not going to help us here unless you table it or you amend it and then you enforce it with people being present. Somebody comes into town Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock. The owner leaves at 1 o'clock before that. The owner comes back at 3 o'clock on Sunday. The folks that left at 2 o'clock on Sunday, what happened in that 48, 50 hours? I don't know. You don't either, except it's going to fall on me to try to do something to stop it when it happens to me. Is that selfish on my part? I think I'm looking out for myself. I think I'm looking out for the other people in R1. Stand up. Do the right thing, please. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for the tone of my voice.
Any other comments? Councilmember Ziff.
Thank you, President Isley. First, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out and expressing their views. I think that's great. That's a fundamental part of this process, is everybody getting to voice their concerns and say how they feel about stuff. So I know that I feel like this has been said before, but I just want to reiterate that with the way legislation currently stands, people can have short-term rentals as long as it's rented out for less than 6 months of the year, currently, in an unregulated fashion. And to me, it seems much more prudent to begin enforcement on some of those properties now with the ability that we have as a future council to go back and change things. It's not the world's hardest task to accomplish to change something that we've passed. We can just, change it. That's our job. We're allowed to do that, which is pretty cool. So I don't know. It seems prudent to me to try and nip some of these issues in the bud now, and then go back and hopefully change and reword if we need to with certain things, because we can definitely do that. And I do respect a lot of the points that everybody here has made, and I appreciate it again. But yeah, we can always change it, right? Am I wrong? We can change it, can't we? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. That's what I got.
Yes, Councilmember Eisner.
I'd like to hear from the law directors, get your explanation about your proposed amendment to this?
It was just a suggestion in order to address some of the concerns of the public. And it was a suggestion I made to Member Fall. It wasn't any mandate by any means. It was just a suggestion. And she could propose it or not propose it. And she chose not to. You know, the wording in here says resident and resident owner, and that language appears other places in our city code, including the tax code. And it's a pretty common, there's a common understanding of what a resident owner is. So my only reason for proposing that was because there was some concern in the community.
Well, without that phrase, do you find the current wording problematical in any way?
No, I don't.
So it's your opinion that the way it stands now is more than adequate?
That
or
there's an
adequate?
understanding of what resident owner is, yes,
Thank you.
without a definition.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, for all the comments. If no further comments or questions, I will ask for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, so we have one in opposition, 6-1. And the motion carries and the ordinance is passed. Thank you. The next ordinance is 14621. This is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 29, Housing Regulations, Chapter 29.03, Rental Dwelling and House Permit. As this is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. Everybody's leaving. They don't want to hear about housing. This changes the Title 29 to update all the wording to show the short-term rental information that we just passed.
Okay.
Thank you.
We
I
have-
move that we adopt.
We have a motion. We have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of 14621. Any comments or questions? Council members, elected officials, or our audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved.
Thank you.
Ordinance 14721 is an ordinance amending certain sections of Athens City Code, Title 17, Municipal Income Tax, Chapter 17.03, Transient Guest Tax, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. I move that we adopt 14721.
Second.
Thank you. I would mention that this is the code, the income tax code that does have the other wording that we just talked about. So, thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of 14721. Any comments or questions from council members, elected officials, or our audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is approved.
Thank you.
14821 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title I, General Provisions, Chapter 1.03, Code Fees Established to include short-term rentals, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. I move that we adopt 14821.
Second.
Thank you. We use Title I for all our fees and things so that it's all centralized, and this is updating Title I with the code fees that will be enacted with short-term rentals. Thank you.
We have a motion and second for approval of 14821. Any comments or questions from council members or elected officials or our audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved.
Thank you.
We're now moving on to ordinances for second reading, and what we will be doing, since this is our final meeting for the evening on both these and the ordinances and resolutions for first reading, will be making a motion to suspend first And then a motion to approve. Ordinance 14921 is
President
an
Isley,
ordinance.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
I assume we will be motioning to suspend the rules for all of these. So I wondered if we could uniformly suspend the rules for all of them in one ordinance?
I don't think we
can't do
can.
that.
I think we
Okay.
have to
Just
do
thought I'd ask.
each one is an individual. Yeah.
Just asked.
But it was a good try. Good thought. Good thought. I will speak as quickly as I can on moving these forward but also taking care to respect people.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, 14921 is an ordinance amending the 2021 appropriation ordinance and authorizing the auditor to make an interfund transfer, introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for 14921 to finish this before the end of the year.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for suspending the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve 14921.
Second.
Thank you, Member Fall. There are a number of items in here, including $25,000 appropriated to the general fund for parking enforcement, $7,437 to the CDBG fund for transfer, and $60,000 to the garbage fund for the December payment. Thank you, President Isley.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Council members, elected officials, audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance has been approved. 15021 is an ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Athens, Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022. This is introduced by Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, President Najee. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for 15021.
Second.
And the reason being?
The reason being that this is our 2022 budget. We would like to have it by January 1st.
Great. Motion and second to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve 15021.
Second.
Thank you. As discussed in committee and in many city meetings prior and at first reading, this is our hard worked on budget for 2022. Thank you, President Isley.
Okay, we have a motion and second to approve, and sharing with many thanks to administration and all the department chairs that worked towards this, and our auditor who helped with this. Thank you, Auditor's Office. Any questions or comments? Council members, elected officials? Yes, Auditor Hecht.
I just want to remind everybody that we are required by law to have a budget in place by January 1st. We can put a temporary budget in place, and then we have to have a permanent one by March 31st, but we have to have a budget in place by January 1st legally.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, we have the motion and second for approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 15121 is an ordinance authorizing the annual compensation for the municipal court clerk, introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Najee. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for 15121.
Second.
Reason being to finish this before the end of the year.
Okay. A motion and second to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Najee. I'd like to make a motion to approve 15121.
Second.
Thank you, Member Grace. This is the setting the compensation for the municipal court clerk. The courts are separate from the non-union personnel in the city of Athens. However, in order to be in alignment with city employees, the judge asked for this position to be put through the same pay band study that the HR director was doing for other positions in the city of Athens. And on top of this, the Ohio Revised Code mandates that if the courts don't make the revenues that they need to operate, then this comes before City Council to set this salary grade. So this would be authorizing the municipal court clerk to be paid at the hourly rate of $30.64. Thank you, President Isley.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval. Any comments or questions? Okay. From council members, elected officials, or audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 15221 is an ordinance to provide for an increase in the general city income tax of 0.1% per annum for a period of 20 years, beginning January 1, 2023, authorizing the question of the increase to be placed on the ballot at the next primary election to be held on May 3rd, 2022. This is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for 15221 in order to have this done by the end of the year and have time to get this on the ballot in May. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, motion and second for suspending the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended, Councilmember Crowe.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve 15221.
Second.
Thank you, Member Fall. This is all in the title. This is all to put this very important levy in front of the voters and to let the voters decide on the support for, for the safety of the citizens of Athens, for our infrastructure. It really comes down to being able to build a much-needed new fire station. Thank you, President Isley.
I have a motion and second for approval of 15221. Any comments or questions from council members?
Yeah, I'd just like to say I think this is extremely important, and I hope all the citizens of Athens vote for it, because I like fire protection.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councilmember Ziv.
Thank you, President Isley. Yeah, I started to sort of pile on there, but I don't know how often I'll be able to talk about this specific subject to a viewing audience on all the cameras. But yeah, this is an incredibly important thing. You know, our fire station, Station 1, is actively falling apart. If you've seen any of the footage, it's ridiculous that our firefighters have to live in those conditions. They're there to protect our safety, and we need to make sure that we, as the citizens of Athens, also protect their safety, which means putting them in a good place to live. Where they don't have to breathe in exhaust fumes every time that they pull in or out with a truck. So, yeah, when this comes up, please go vote for this. This is a great thing.
Okay. And I might add the comment that the administration has been diligent about making the repairs for the building, including appropriation of a significant amount of money this fall. And so we are doing our very best, but it's the fire chief and the architect's decision that the building that we're in since the mid-'60s has now reached the end of its useful life. So just a little bit of context in case somebody's listening for the first time. Okay.
I get a little passionate, sorry.
So that's okay. We have a motion and second for approval. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 15321 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 3321 to increase the authorized expenditure for the Kimes Reservoir Project 324, introduced by Councilmember Grace.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules so that council could pass this before the end of this year.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and second to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended, Councilmember Grace.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion that we approve Ordinance 15321.
Second.
And this is an adjustment to the cost of the Kimes Reservoir project due to findings of some unsuitable soil surfaces on which to build. And, a very necessary project. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from council members, elected officials, audience? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 15421 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 9121, authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into a contract for the construction of dugouts for Fields 1 and 2 at the West State Street Park, project number 341, introduced by Councilmember Grace.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for the purposes of passing this legislation this year.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for suspending the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended, Councilmember Grace.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Ordinance 15421.
Second.
Thank you. And this is a slight adjustment to the appropriation ordinance 14020, changing it from $65,000 to $70,000 for the West State Street dugouts project. And I believe this accounts for the fencing to be installed there.
So we have a motion and second for approval of 15421. Comment?
Quick comment. Thank you,
Councilmember Smedley.
Thank you, President Nisley. Just appreciate the intention and investment paid to the West State Street Park and hope to see that into the future to address some of the other issues going on. Thank you.
An additional comment?
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, Member McCary.
Thank you. Want to second that care and attentiveness that has gone into this project, particularly supporting our parks. Just based on community input, I want to make the public statement that we also want to look for opportunities to support our recreation and arts facilities as well in the future. I recognize that this is a priority right now and just want to make sure that we are thinking about arts, parks, and recreation moving forward.
Okay, great. Any other comments? Council members, elected officials, audience? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Okay, so 6-1, and the ordinance, the motion carries, and the ordinance is approved. 15521 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an LPA state project agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation to upgrade and retrofit high and low mast HPS lighting to LED lighting on a portion of US 33 within the city of Athens and declaring an emergency. Introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for 155-21.
Second.
The reason for the suspension is get it done before the end of the year.
Okay.
Should we vote on it?
Yes, we have a motion and second to suspend. I'm sorry, I'm slowing down, Councilmember Reisner. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended, Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion to adopt 155-21.
Second.
And as been stated before, AEP wants to change the light bulbs from high-energy sodium, high-pressure sodium to LEDs, and since we have to pay the bill for those things, this is reduce our electric bill and we get better light. So please vote for it.
Motion and second for approval. Any other comments or questions from council members, elected officials, audience members? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We're moving forward. Ordinances for first reading, and once again, there are 3 of them tonight, and we will be suspending on these in order to pass them. 15621, and this was described in committee tonight and is time sensitive. This is an emergency ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute the participation agreement for the One Ohio subdivision settlement with Janssen, Johnson & Johnson pursuant to the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding regarding the pursuit and use of potential opioid litigation settlement funds and consistent with the material terms of the July 21st, 2021 proposed settlement agreement available at, and I'll list the website, the opioidsettlement.com, nationalopioidsettlement.com, and to accept the terms of the One Ohio settlement and declaring an emergency. And this is introduced by all members of council, so if we could have the motions for suspension and approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and second to suspend the rules. The purpose being that this is time sensitive and the deadline, in fact, is this week for filing this agreement. All those in favor of suspending the rules signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. The rules have been suspended. And so now if I could have a motion and second to approve.
So moved. Second.
Okay. And are there any comments or questions from council, elected officials, audience? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 15721 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 3020, authorizing an agreement with IPS Group, Inc. to provide parking technology and related services for the Division of Parking Services. And this is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for 157-21.
Second.
Reason being, it is time sensitive.
Okay, we do have a motion and second for approval, suspending the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion to adopt 157-21.
Second.
We read this about an hour and 15 minutes ago in committee, and I have nothing further to add. Nothing's changed in that hour and 15 minutes, so I urge everyone to vote for this.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and second for approval of 157-21. Any other comments or questions from council members, elected officials, or our audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 158-21 is an ordinance amending the 2021 appropriation ordinance introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for 158-21 to have this completed by the end of the year.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for suspending the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Rules have been suspended. Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to, approve 158-21.
Second.
Thank you. As, again, discussed at committee just not too long ago, this is to accommodate a billing change for financial software in the amount of $4,900 to 3 separate funds, water, sewer, and garbage. Thank you, President Isley.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approving 158-21. Any comments or questions from council members, elected officials, or our audience? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We'll now move on to a resolution for second reading. And this is one of those third reading resolutions, so once again, we'll need the ordinance, the motion to suspend and then the motion to approve. Ordinance 1321 is a resolution to place the issue of increasing the city income tax by 0.1% 0.1% per annum, beginning January 1, 2023, on the ballot at the next primary election on May 3rd, 2022, and directing the Board of Elections of Athens County to conduct the election, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for R1321.
Second.
And we have a motion and second.
In order to have it done by the end of the year. Sorry.
That's okay. For suspending the rules, we have
Good
a motion
reason.
and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Crown.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve R1321.
Second.
Thank you. As discussed in the title, this is in order to let the voters choose. I hope they choose wisely to put this levy on the ballot. Thank you, President Isley.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approving this resolution. All those in favor, any comments or questions? This is the corollary that needs to move through. The resolution moves through at the same time that the ordinance does for placing this on the ballot. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the resolution is approved. We do now have a series of 4 one-reading resolutions. The first one being R1421, a resolution in support of an ad hoc committee to review pedestrian accessibility, most importantly, the condition of existing sidewalks, introduced by all members of council, and I believe Councilmember Smedley would like to
Yes, thank you,
move this
President
forward.
Isley. As mentioned in committee, this ad hoc committee would focus on pedestrian accessibility, in particular conditions of existing sidewalks. And it would be made up of a diverse group of people appointed by President Isley, and with the hope of helping the city along in establishing baseline information, a timeline, and strategies to meet the goals set forth in the city's comprehensive plan and the bicycle and pedestrian plan.
So, and you're making a motion to?
I make a
approve.
motion, please. Thank
Okay.
you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of Resolution 1421. Any comments or questions from council members, elected officials, or our audience? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the resolution is approved. Resolution 1521 is a resolution in support of establishing a zero waste policy for the city of Athens, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. I propose that we adopt the zero waste resolution.
Second.
Thank you. I'm not going to read all the whereases. We have been talking about this particular issue since Jennifer Cochran. When, you know, we build on what has gone before us, and I always want to say amazing thank you to all the people who went before. So this is kind of completing that circle, also completing the circle with the greenhouse, our climate emergency that we passed in 2020. Basically, this is putting together the solid waste or zero waste policy. And to do that, we are putting forward some requests to the mayor and the administration to look at plastic use and become plastic-free by 23, to include requiring all events held on city properties or sponsored by the city to be plastic-free. And to conduct a waste audit of cities' buildings by September of 23, and to develop a zero waste policy with benchmarks and such by 2024. Also, something that we know happens a lot in our county is nobody recycles because it's very, very difficult. So it would be good if the city and the Section 2, furthermore, City Council requests partnering with area businesses and nonprofits to reduce regional waste and encourage adoption of zero waste policies by other municipalities and the county, and to develop a green procurement policy. Once again, Athens can become is a leader in this, just like we were the leaders in certain types of composting and curbside recycling in the state of Ohio. This is just re-emphasizing our leadership, and I hope that people will vote yes. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of Resolution 1521. Any other comments or questions? Council members, elected officials, audience? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The resolution, the motion carries and the resolution is approved. Thank you, Councilmember Fall. And now we have, yes, two resolutions, and we're going to be official about this. So Council members Grace and Reisner are going up to the podium. And so first, we're going to ask Councilmember Fall to come on up to the podium.
I don't want to know.
And this is...
It's the political obituary.
Oh, it's R1621. It's Resolution 1621. This is a resolution expressing the appreciation of the city of Athens, Ohio.
I have to stand here?
Yeah, to Councilmember Chris Fall for her public service. And if I could have a motion and second on this before we read through, so I don't forget.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, here we go.
A resolution expressing the appreciation of the City of Athens, Ohio, to Councilmember Chris Fall for her public service. Whereas Chris Fall has generously given her time to be a public servant, serving as 4th Ward Council member from February 2009 through December 2021. And whereas throughout her tenure on City Council, Chris Fall has served as chair of the Planning and Development Committee. And whereas Chris Fall has been a strong voice for the city's constitutionally protected right to self-government and home rule authority. And whereas Chris Fall champions support of environmental initiatives, including climate change, wellhead protection, hydraulic fracturing, single-use plastic bags, zero waste, and solar energy systems. And whereas Chris Fall led the proposal of resolutions that supported the greater good of the community, and whereas Chris Fall mastered the frequently asked questions format to provide additional helpful information about council issues, and whereas Chris Fall has generously given her time to be a public servant, and be it resolved by the Council of the City of Athens, Ohio. Section 1, the City of Athens does hereby express its appreciation to Chris Fall for her faithful and distinguished service to the city as 4th Ward representative of Athens City Council and wishes her well in future endeavors.
And just so we make it official, too. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, I won't even ask about opposed. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. All right, next is Resolution 1721, a resolution expressing the appreciation of the City of Athens, Ohio, to Councilmember Arian Smedley for her public service. And this is introduced by all members of council. I'm going to ask the same thing, if we could have a motion and second for approval before we read it.
So moved.
So moved, and
Second?
second, okay, all right.
A resolution expressing the appreciation of the City of Athens, Ohio to Councilmember Arian Smedley for her public service. Whereas Arian Smedley first served the Athens community by filling a vacancy as an at-large member of council from August 2017 through December 2017, and was then elected to serve as First Ward Council Representative from January 1, 2020 through December 31, 2021. And whereas Arian Smedley, during her tenure on City Council, has served as a member of the City and Safety Services Committee, Finance and Personnel Committee, Planning and Development Committee, and the Transportation Committee, and has served these positions well with her thorough review of documentation and thoughtful questions that advance the discussion and decisions of council-related issues. And whereas Arian Smedley has been proactive in addressing constituent concerns on the city's west side, and whereas Arian Smedley created legislation to ban income source discrimination, and whereas Arian Smedley graciously acknowledged her presenter's time and effort, and whereas Arian Smedley has generously given her time to be a public servant, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Athens, Ohio. The City of Athens does hereby express its appreciation to Arian Smedley for her faithful and distinguished service to the city as an at-large member of Athens City Council, and wishes her well in future endeavors.
Once again, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
It's been an absolute pleasure. You all make it worth it, Athens makes it worth it, and you all make it worth it. So thank you.
Good, good. And Chris,
I have
Councilmember Fall has something.
One last thing that we have to, very important, one thing that we do. Sometimes we have like traditions that go on from people. So we're starting a tradition tonight. My foil ball that I have been working on since how long ago? This is all the candy that I've eaten. It is very important during COVID. Debbie took extra special care of it and put it behind her desk. I am now establishing the tradition that the foil ball will go to the next one, who's going to be President Pro Tem. I was President Pro Tem. I give the foil ball.
Okay, all right. And now back to our last official act of the evening, a motion to adjourn.
And I'm a done.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, nay? None, I'm sure. Thank you all very much for your patience tonight. We're adjourned at 8:59, and we'll see you all in 2022. Thank you.